New at noon, the U.S. government has succeeded in preventing a high-ranking Navy commander from having to be deposed in a major lawsuit over the Red Hill tainted water crisis. Admiral Samuel Paparo, commander of the U.S. Pacific Fleet, is one of the Navy leaders at the center of the controversy. Today, a federal judge decided to quash his testimony. Attorneys suing the government for more than 400 plaintiffs wanted to question the commander, saying the government failed to warn them about the water and that Paparo played a pivotal role in the communications and remediation plan following the crisis. Paparo was recently nominated by Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin to be Chief of Naval Operations. That's the Navy's highest officer. The recommendation reportedly went to the White House, but President Biden has not signed it yet.
As the search